every single show got worse. Or like the bracelets that they give you, like the first one said instead of, like, because we were at day at the fair at the time. So the first one just said day at the fair. And then the second one said like day the fair or something. And then the last one was just like day fair or something. Like every day they just like fucking cared less and less. And we were like, this fucking sucks.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, I'm really trying to get to the Derby Punk show, but I don't think that I'm going to make it next weekend because it's going to cost me like $1,000, and I just don't have fucking money to burn. Apparently having a podcast doesn't make you rich. So we shall see, but some people have asked me if I'm going to go, and it's really just comes down to finances. So if you guys want to buy $1,000 worth of fucking merch before next Friday, then go to thiswasthescene.com. Day at the Fair was a New Jersey-based pop-punk band that gained attention in the early 2000s with their emotionally charged lyrics and catchy melodic hooks. Best known for their 2005 album, The Rocking Chair Years, the band blended heartfelt storytelling with energetic, anthemic soundscapes. Though their time was brief, they left a lasting impression on fans of the Drive-Thru Records era. That's a good right up there, ChatGPT. For anyone who's been listening to this podcast from the very beginning, every time I mention Robert J. Heiner, this is the Rob I'm talking about. I've known Rob since I was like fucking 13, or like, yeah, it was like 13, 14, and we didn't really become friends till we were 16. But Rob is one of my most favorite people in the entire fucking planet. So I was very excited that he decided to do this interview because Rob is one of the funniest people on the fucking planet. So there's definitely a lot of laughing. But yeah, Rob was in my old band Lanemeyer, and then he was in Humble Beginnings, and he was in Scratch Kid, and then he was in Day at the Fair. So we talk about all these things. So I got him on the Skype, and this is the last Skype interview I'll ever be able to do because they closed it down. And this is what we chat about. The weird show at Mt Arlington Elks Lodge in New Jersey, joining Lanemeyer, joining Scratch Kid, joining Humble Beginnings, the antics of Humble Beginnings, the forever endeavor, oh yeah, I forgot about them, almost getting killed by Casey Lee Morgan, him being the reason Brian Fallon joined Lanemeyer, the origins of Day at the Fair, the pain game with Bob, Skinny, and Chris, signing to Drive-Thru / Rushmore Records, the Bees artwork on the LP, the mile after trying to outdrink them, having weed in the Humble van while getting it searched, the time he slapped me across the face, and a ton more. Check out his company, Amplify. It's AIMPLFY.com. I put a link in the show notes. He does AI consulting, and he's really good at it. We talk about that towards the end. And go see him play with Humble Beginnings June 6th with Iron Chic in Lindenhurst, New York, and June 7th in Bensalem, Pennsylvania for the Derby Punks class reunion show at Broken Goblet Brewery, which I just mentioned at the very beginning of this interview. Finally, check out the Day at the Fair shows on August 1st and 2nd at Crossroads in Garwood, New Jersey with Houston Calls. The first show did sell out, but maybe someone's going to be selling their tickets, and you can still get tickets for the second show. I will have a link in the show notes below, so you can go buy those. If you want to support the podcast, I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/thiswasthescene. You can also go to thiswasthescene.com and scroll down to the donate button, and there's a bunch of ways you can do it there. And yeah, that's all I got to say. So feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. So I've known Rob. So Rob, when I say Robert J., this is the Robert J. I'm talking about. So I've known Rob since, we were in middle school. No, it wasn't even middle school. It was high school. The first time you and I hung out was, in my recollection,
Study hall. Breakfast study hall.
All right, so fast forward, high school year, me and Rob. So I took music theory first period, and I think I went for a couple weeks and decided it sucked. So then I went to study hall. Rob was in study hall, which was on a cafeteria. So we sat together, and that's where we became friends, just like sitting together. So then fast forward, that leads to Chris from Lanemeyer and Day at the Fair. He ends up befriending all of us differently and kind of creating our group of friends. And that's pretty much how, when you came into the group, did you know Chris before me, or did you know Chris because of me?
No, my link is Bob. Me and Bob were best friends in kindergarten. He would get dropped off at his grandma's house, which was like by me, because his parents weren't home from work. He would get dropped off like basically on the main road to my house. We would grab our freaking big wheels and we would just like go meet halfway and then decide like what to do after school. But it was like the 80s, so like your parents would let you go take a big wheel and just go wherever you wanted when you were 5,
Yeah, especially on that it's not really much of a busy road, but if you're on that, a car's flying by, they're gonna run you over.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like if I gave Madison a big wheel and said go meet up with your friends, Kim would kill me.
All right, so we're in study hall, and then you and I basically start rollerblading together. You had started like Bob had started, you and Bob had started together, and then I wanted to get into it. So that's how we got involved in that whole thing for a minute, which also led to listening to more bands because Bob would watch skate videos and then learn about like Pennywise and all that. So he started playing that in face to face, and then Chris was playing that. So that's my recollection of how we kind of really started getting in.
Bob, at first, Bob had all the things that I would just borrow from him. Like I would borrow White Trash, Two Heaves and a Bean from Bob. I would borrow Bad Religion from Bob. I would borrow Pennywise. Like it was always from Bob for sure. Can you make me copy this or just like make me a random mix? Like it was always from Bob, usually with like Chris being the source that Bob got it from.
We would skate, and then you got a camcorder for like Christmas or your birthday. Yeah, so you started videotaping stuff, and then like when you and I would skate, you would make these mixtapes. So that's how I started listening to. I never really got into them, but you'd put on Sex Pistols, Dead Kennedys, like all this early punk.
Some of that came from my sister, weirdly enough. It was always either Bob or my sister were like my two sources or videos, you know.
Because you found Harvesting the Crust. That was the first skate video you found, or was it like
All this stuff is like really blurry to me. I remember 10-foot pole I found in a video. We went to your dad's house and went to the record store and I bought Rev by 10-foot pole and then we went to Taco Bell or some shit, you know, but it was always Sound Exchange on 23 or I don't think I ever went to Flipside until we had our license or until somebody had their license.
Luch?
But like Sound Exchange worked because we would go to your dad's house and from there it was a walk.
This whole time period, you and I were starting to become really close, and then Chris again, like it's like you, me, Chris, Bob, Justin, Luch, Andy comes in the picture because of Congress of Cast. So then, who do I miss in that whole thing? I say Price,
Jeff,
Woosley, D. Maselli.
Jeff, Vic, yeah.
Yeah, Vic. Well, me and Vic worked together at Sears, and then he was coming to shows. So Chris was like, I want to start a band. Bob bought a bass. He couldn't play it. He didn't want to learn, or he just couldn't figure it out. So then I bought the bass from Bob. I learned that. Me and Chris start playing together. Chris gets Andy and Jeff, so we start Congress Cow. And that's pretty much what gets me involved in the scene. So I think that's like the same thing as how you started going to shows too, right?
That's right when I started going to shows too. Like you guys playing Mt Arlington Elks, but then we like started catching fly. Like people came out to that show and like handed out, and that was like a weird show. That was
Everyone sat in the ground.
like you got yeah, everybody sat on the floor, and it was like some of the bands were kind of like alternative and not really like in the scene kind of stuff. Somebody came to that show to like flyer for other shows, and we got a flyer for like a Cedar Grove show. Do you remember that? That was like kind of by Willowbrook if you stayed on 23. And we ended up going to that show, and that's like where we first ran into the Humble guys.
Okay, so I don't think I was at that one because I remember meeting Humble when we went to the Oblivion show that they were playing because they were on tour with them when they had the 7-inch split with them in Boonton.
I'm pretty sure the Cedar Grove was before that. Like the first time I remember being at a show and being like, "Oh, this is cool," was probably like the Cedar Grove show that I'm thinking of. I don't remember who was there. I don't remember who else played. I want to say maybe like Plan A might have played or like something adjacent to that, you know. Somehow through that we ended up hooking up with Alan at Flipside and he would like give us flyers or tell us about shows. We'd end up in like random Wayne basements or something in like Booton, maybe like not Booton, the Jill maybe there was like a Jill show,
Yeah, I didn't go to any of those
and
shows.
Plow was like supposed to show up one of a million times that Plow was supposed to play, but they didn't make it. They ended up canceling.
That was like around the time that Alan went on tour with Jill, I think.
Probably, and like that's like some True Zero shit's going on in there a little bit. Definitely a bunch of Plan A.
Did Sicko play, or we heard
Echo
about
didn't
Sicko?
play around here, but that was definitely like one of the bands that Alan kind of like threw our way. Just got really into them.
Well, what did you like about it? Like when you started going to those shows, what was that aha moment for you when you were going there?
I don't know, man. I think my connection to all this is just having people to hang out with. I grew up with Nick, my cousin, who was like 6 months older than me. But then like he started getting super into like drugs and shit, and I was like not really going there. With him, I was always kind of like the lackey for lack of a better term, you know? Like I think it was just just having other people to hang out with, that's kind of the North Star of all this for me. Like even like day at the fair shit, like when we would come home from tour, everyone would go hang out with their girlfriends and stuff, and I'd be like, the fuck? Like no one wants to hang out? They're like, no, we have other lives. We're gonna go do shit. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd like find like a bunch of younger kids to hang out with or something just because I just wanted to be like going out and doing stuff. Chris would be like, yeah, no, I'm hanging out with my girlfriend. I'd be like, okay, York. I'd just go to the bar and hang out with a bunch of 21-year-olds. Realistically, like everybody else had like real jobs and shit by that time. We were like still on paper first semester freshmen in college.
Technically, we go back, Congress of Cows playing, and we start playing local shows, and then you create the Fonza Noons, from what I just remembered.
Correct. From Caddyshack 2, which is like the worst movie to reference for a band name because nobody who the hell watched Caddyshack 2. I didn't know how to play, and nobody else in the band knew how to play either. And we were just like, well, let's just start a band. Everybody else does this, so we just started a band that played once
In Vic's backyard.
Vic's backyard. Yeah, like 4 songs. But through that, Pat Henright had this random extra left-handed Squire Strat that he gave me. I cut the nut out from like right below the headstock and like flipped it and re-glued it. And the thing buzzed like a motherfucker. I flipped it so that it could be like work for a right-handed person, you know, with the strings in the right order. Like I didn't do the Josh from Bigwig thing and just play it upside down. And I just like bought a pack of strings and just figured it out. And yeah, that's how I learned.
Well, how did you learn though? Were you reading tablature, or did you just learn the basic
No, I
drum
mean like
chord?
this is like I mean there's but before computer like everybody had computers in their house, so it was, I don't know. I think Chris might have come over and somebody came over and just showed me power chords and that was it.
I feel like that would have been Josh from Humble.
Before Josh, like before like me and Josh hung out a lot anyway. It's either Chris, it might have been Pat Henry to be honest.
Fast forward, Lanemeyer happens. Me and Chris want to go on tour. Sean's all about it. Alan's like, we don't want to do this. So we kick out Alan, which was, we talked about in Alan's interview, which is like episode like fucking, I think like 7 or 8 or something. I want to get to Day at the Fair, but there's 2 main bands before you get there. Actually, no, there's 3. There's Lanemeyer, Humble, and then you also were in Scratch Kid for a second and some in between that.
Forever Endeavor was between Humble and Day Fair.
You were in Forever Endeavor?
Yeah, for like 3 or 4 months, not super long time. And to be fair, dude, like I was not in Lanemeyer. Like I was in Lanemeyer for less than a year.
Well, you went on 2 tours with us. So we kick Alan out, and then you come in, you start playing with us that summer.
Yeah, I don't remember if I'm already living at Sean's house or you guys asked me to be in the band.
Well, you sold yourself to be in the band. Do you remember this? We're at my mom's condo.
No.
We're at my mom's condo. We're on the deck, and we're all drinking. And you and me were outside, and you're like, "All right, dude." And you basically pitched me and said like, I want to be in the band. Yeah, it was just like we were drunk and you're telling me like, let's go on tour and like we'll just all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, dude, yeah. And then somehow that translated. Either I talked to Chris or you talked to Chris, but you sat there and we're just like, I want to be in the band. This is why. Let's make this happen.
I do not remember that at all, but that's awesome. Clearly, I had no idea what I was getting myself into there. To be fair, I didn't understand the full dysfunction of Lanemeyer until I was playing with Humble for like 6 months. I just thought that that's what being a band was. I thought that this is just like the way that Lanemeyer was just how bands are. Like clearly that's not the case.
Well, I mean, we didn't like when the first tour we went on, that was with Saturday Super Kid. When Chris doesn't like something, or back then, I mean, I think he still does this, but he would just completely shut down and kind of ignore you. And I feel like the first tour at some point in that tour, I think he started just kind of distancing himself from you. Or was it the second tour? Because the second tour,
Was that like because I was in Lanemeyer, me and you were kind of like Switzerland a little bit. You would occasionally get pissed off at Chris, and I would occasionally fight back with Sean because Sean would fight me because he couldn't fight Chris. You could get away with fighting with Chris because we all knew each other before that. Sean knew he was playing with fire if he went too hard at Chris, so he would just like start shit with me as like a Chris adjacent kind of thing, you know? In Florida, when he like threw my pillow out of the van and we all broke up for probably the millionth time, and I was just like, shut up, just everybody get in the fucking van. And like then I just drove from like Miami to
Indiana.
Indiana. Yeah,
So the first tour, it was like a week with Saturday Supercade. It's hot as fuck, but it was just, I don't know, I loved it. Just my memory, I love
that
it.
was great.
The first van dies in Indiana.
We could like hear the valves ticking and clicking and shit when we were driving through like Ohio on our way to Indiana. And we're just like laughing about it, like, this is what happens, we're fucked. But we just like fingers crossed we ended up getting there. And then we were like, holy shit, we broke down in the same town that the Bouncing Souls broke down in. Like it felt like a weird fate kind of thing almost. And then we like rented the rider truck and we went home. The first tour was not as bad. Like second tour is like when shit started getting bad.
Yeah. Well, the first tour is where Sean stole the Letters to Cleo tape from that record store in Boston, and that's what cursed us.
Sounds totally legit.
Yeah, he walked out. He's like, "Oh, I stole this Letters to Cleo tape." We're like, "Dude, we're a band on tour. What the fuck?" And then everything started going to shit from that point on. The second tour, we're in the newer van. So the first van was Phil, and the second van, Sean's mom's friend loaned us this van, which we could pay off or something.
So first of all, we were 19, Sean was 24. We were just horrible to him in so many ways. I mean, he got us back, I'm sure, in other ways. Do you remember like Sean's uncle was the mechanic? We'd be asking like questions about like, dude, where'd the band fund go? And he'd be like, oh, I had to take the van to my uncle. And we'd be like, what do you mean he's like, my uncle, the mechanic. And we're like, did he go to school to be a mechanic? Like, what's going on? And he'd be like, no, he's just a mechanic. And we're like, oh, Chris, do you want to be a mechanic? And you're like, I'd love to be a mechanic. And we just like all just make up different jobs. We'd be like, oh, you want to be a doctor? I guess you're a doctor now. Like
I forgot about that.
every time, like we'd have 1,500, two grand or something in the bank, and then like we'd get ready to Sean would be like, oh, we got to play the show. We need money. And be like, dude, we have money. He'd be like, no, I had to take the van into my uncle. And we'd be like, your fucking uncle again? Like, are you? And it was always like Sean's uncle.
He's gonna get so mad when he hears this.
Listen, there's a 15% chance that Sean's uncle legitimately worked on our band and got all that money. Or there's like Sean did all the work and he deserved a little something because the rest of us weren't doing shit.
I always thought that he wasn't lying. Like, I thought his uncle actually worked at like a mechanic shop.
It's possible.
Yeah, but I do remember you saying like, "Oh, Chris, do you want to be a mechanic?" It's like, "Sure, I'm a mechanic now." Like that was it was so mean, but it's so fucking funny.
It's a partial miracle that like Sean didn't kill at least one of us because when I got to be 24 and I thought about being on tour with 19-year-old us's, I would have fucking beat somebody's ass.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was more like there was really no other option because he was delivering pizzas. And I think he was just like, well, I mean, he really was the reason why that band was on the road. Without Sean, we never would have fucking toured. Yeah, even just from like the Lanemeyer shows we've done from 2018 till now, and I've taken over the reins of organizing. That's only been 4 shows, and that was a fucking pain in the ass. So, and I have technology in my possession, and it was fucking annoying.
Do you remember how we used to never practice? Like we practiced when I joined the band, and then we like would almost never practice unless Chris was like, "I have a new song." That was like the only time we ever practiced.
Yeah, and that's why we were really bad live. We were never tight ever.
I was the one who got blamed for being bad live.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. Well, you were only like 6 months into playing a guitar too.
Dude, I am not saying that I was good at all, and I'm probably not significantly better even than I was then. In Chris's interview, like when he's going over this period of time, he was like, yeah, Rob just like never would learn the parts. And I would like literally be like, Chris, let's just sit down and just show me what you want me to play. And he'd be like, oh yeah, and then he'd just like Chris stuff, it would just not happen. And then in Patino's interview that you did, Patino's like, yeah, I joined when I started playing guitar, when I joined after, I don't remember if he was after me or if there was other people in between.
He was right after you. Who's exactly.
So then he's like, yeah, I joined the band, and then Chris sat me down and he showed me all the parts, and I'm like, motherfucker, like, are you kidding me? The thing that I asked Chris to do, he wouldn't do, but then Dave joins the band and he's, yeah, here's all the parts, don't worry about it. We'll get you caught up, no big deal.
I think Chris probably did that because you are just learning to play guitar, and I think he was like, there's no way he's going to catch up to this, which if he did sit down with you, that would have definitely helped, but I think he probably just figured in his head, like, this isn't going to work. We're going to need another guitar player. So he just shut down and didn't want to communicate with you, which was bad.
To be fair, that worked out for the better anyway, because hanging out in that toxic environment was not always the fun that I was looking for in the first place. After I quit, I just remember not wanting to be in any band that was remotely serious. So when Connor and Joe and Dom were like looking for another guitarist for Scratch Kid, like I was cool with that because they were still like super young. Connor had a little something. It didn't always come out, but like he definitely had a little something there. Like Dom's overall just very talented. At the time he just wasn't playing the shit that he was meant to be playing, you know? Because like he was super into like Voice That's Fire and At the Drive-In and stuff already. He just was playing in a pop punk band, you know? But like those guys were super fun to play with and to hang out with. And when the humble,
Wait, so real quick. So Rob's in Lanemeyer, and then we had to make the decision. We were like, I think Chris had said we got to get a new guitar player.
I think you guys basically gave me the opportunity to quit before I got fired, kind of thing.
Well, I don't think we told you. I think you caught wind of it, and then you said, "Hey, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
just bow out." And then the last show, we played at Wayne Firehouse, and you smashed your guitar on the ground.
that was on
Oh, that was
the
Garfield's.
humble Lanemeyer reunion show,
Yeah.
reunion
Oh.
tour.
Oh my God, that's right. Rob bows out gracefully, but we were gonna kick him out. It's the same thing like what Sean did and Chris did, and like later on, which is funny because like fast forward, we're gonna talk about the day of the fair. Rob leaves, does Scratch Kid, and then how do you get into Humble?
That was like right when like they had Eben for a hot minute, and then Eben joined Saves the Day. So I was like, okay, so Gabe was in this band. He leaves. He starts Midtown. Midtown's blowing up. Eben joins for like 3 months, leaves and joins Saves the Day. Like, I'm gonna fucking join Weezer or some shit after this. Like, I was like totally looking at it like there's something about this band that is a stepping stone to something awesome that never came to fruition. But at first, I was like legitimately like I still did like I had signed back up for school and I was like in school that semester and this was like spring of 99, I would think, the spring semester, but I like started playing with them in like January or something, January, February. So I was good friends with Josh at the time. Josh was like, we just need somebody to fill in until we can find somebody else because we have these shows booked and we don't want to have to cancel. At that time, with Josh's girlfriend living in Long Island, they were playing Long Island every weekend.
Was that Kelly?
Yeah,
Okay, it was Kelly, Annoying Girl. Yep.
3 shows at least, like Friday night, Saturday matinee, possibly Saturday night, sometimes even like a Sunday matinee. We do like 3 or 4 shows every weekend in Long Island. Sometimes like other spots, like but we were not playing Jersey at all. And I was like still technically only like filling in. I had no bass equipment. I think I might have had like a Squire P bass or something that I bought at like a Sam Ash sale, something like that I might have been using at first. And I think I sold that to Thumbser later on. I was still only filling in for like 3 or 4 months. Everybody was cool. Nobody like I don't remember any fights in humble beginnings with anybody. Jeremy quit and everybody was nice to him. There was one time where like somebody had to cancel a show because something came up and Josh had this like weird tangent. Guys, this isn't a favor to me. It's not a favor to me for you to be in this band. If you don't want to do it, like you don't have to do it. And it was like in Del Vecchio's basement and then like it was like a weird, like passive aggressive kind of thing, you know? He left, he gets in his car and he leaves, and we're all just like, the fuck was that? Just literally like never like the meanest thing that I can think of that ever happened in that band. One time we were like playing in Vermont or New Hampshire with and Red Rover was there with us. John Randall had just bought like a new SG. He's like, here, play it. And I'm like sitting there on a curb playing John Randall's new SG and Del Vecchio. I don't even know if he might have been fucking around, like, because in hindsight, like, none of it makes sense to anything that ever happened. And he was like, maybe if you spent more time practicing bass instead of playing guitar, you wouldn't fucking suck so much. Okay, that was weird. And then he like walked away, and I was like, he probably was screwing around, but like the way that he said it sounded like he wasn't at the time. That's like literally like the only thing that I can say ever happened. Everybody was just always so cool. And it was always like about just having fun. And there was also like the scene was changing at that time, you know? It was like very clear that people didn't like us as much as they did previously.
Well, the thing too is that so when you get into Humble, Gabe leaves, you take over. Well, Gabe then Eben, then you take over. And then when you got in the band, it seemed like the four of you were just this tight unit and just laughing and having fun all the time.
Dude, 100%. And like, just real quick to finish up how I actually got in the band, we were going to like Virginia Beach show or something was coming up, and we were practicing in Chris's basement. And I was like, all right, when's next practice? They were like, so we have somebody else coming to try out. And I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure how to help you with that. Not talking to you, Alexa. Sorry. I was like, oh, all right, well, let me know if you need anything. And Jeremy was just like, can you fucking stop blue balling us and just join the goddamn band? And I was like, okay. And that was it. And then they canceled whoever was coming to try out. And that was it.
Well, you're pretty much just go with the flow anyway, so that makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was probably drawing it out a little bit because they were like buying all my meals and like taking care of me real good. To the equipment thing, like when they had just won that, like the Ernie Ball contest. So they got like a bunch of shitty Ernie Ball amps and stuff. So we went to Victor's House of Music in Paramus and we just unloaded everything. We were like, give us a price for everything. All the free shit that they won, we just traded it all in, and they like bought me a bass cab, and I don't remember what else.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. Del Vecchio went and picked out new like cymbal boxes, hardware. Like everybody got stuff, you know what I mean? Like everybody was so like just chill, like. So I think we did the tour with you guys.
I wanted to bring that up. Yeah, that was in April.
June.
That was
in April?
That was in April, I believe, because that was our fourth tour. Because we were gonna break up because Sean quit at the end. No, that was the fourth tour. Sean quit at the end of the third tour when we were with Patino in Pennsylvania. So then Chris tried to be the booking guy the whole time. He's like, this fucking sucks. So we're like, we're going to break up. Let's go on a last tour with Humble. So we get together with you guys, and then you're pulling double duty. So you're playing guitar in Lanemeyer, and you're playing bass in Humble every single night for 3 weeks.
That was definitely in the summer. That was when we met the Steady Alpha 6 guys. OCG was on tour, like kind of at the same time. We were all like bouncing back and forth. Yeah, it was hot as hell. Those guys were all in college. They wouldn't have been out if it was like not the summer. Do you remember we were in like Sean's apartment and there was like some weird show on TV and it was like the 10 most dangerous intersections in America? One of them was like, Sean's like, oh, that's right down the street. We're going to pass that on the way to the show tomorrow. On the way to the show, there was an accident and it was like Humble in front, you guys behind us, and I think even Steady Alpha 6 behind you guys. And the accident was like so fresh that like the cops weren't on the scene yet. There was like a guy and he gets out of his car and he's like holding his knee or something. And I just fucking bust out the super soaker and just lit him up right.
I do remember that. Oh my god. Which we learned from Saturday Supercade in the very first tour.
Yeah. That is like textbook Humble Beginnings behavior, The other really good example is we were playing Rutgers, I think with Weston. We get done with the show and we're like, all right, let's go find a diner or something. And it was like we're in the like Route 1 and 9 area after we leave New Brunswick, and we're trying to find a diner. I did not partake this particular occasion, and everybody like hotboxes the van. We get to the diner. Del Vecchio was like ordering with his eyes, not his stomach, So he orders 3 or 4 appetizers. So when we get out of there, like as we're ready to leave, there's at least like 3 or 4 full potato skins. And we're like, yo, let's bring those with us. We'll like throw them at shit on the way home. I'm driving. Josh is riding shotgun. Jeremy and Chris are in the back. And I think they're even like popping the side door open to like throw potato skins. We're down to our final potato skin. You're probably doing like 45, 50 on Route 1 and 9. I see this guy at the intersection, like hit the button for like make the light change. I look over and I don't know if I was about to say, get that guy, or I was about to say like, no, but like Josh is out the window already launching. I would assume Josh is probably more athletic now at 45 than he was at 2021, but like, dude, Josh back then probably couldn't hit like the side of a barn. You know what I mean? He fucking launches this thing and we're going like 50 miles an hour. And all I heard was like the loudest slap you've ever heard in your life. And I look in like the side view mirror and like the guy's on the fucking ground, like got potato skinned at like 50 miles an hour. And then we had to spend like the next 15 minutes convincing ourselves that that guy probably just like did something horrible and he deserved it. And like that was like his karmic retribution. the alternative of thinking like, what if that guy just like got dumped and then he got to see his like
Real quick, if you're needing an explainer video, that's what I do for a living. My company is drive80.com. You can email me at mike@drive80.com for some samples and pricing. Industries that I've created explainer animations for over the last 14 years are tech, software, medical, pharma, recruiting, nonprofits, accounting, ed tech, and more. That's all I'm going to say. So now back to the show. Didn't you guys used to like pull up next to vans and point at their tire to make the other person pull over and just drive away laughing?
I don't explicitly remember that, but that sounds like something we would do. One time we were on tour, somebody cut us off really bad and like almost killed us. Like Josh was driving and had to like swerve to like not get hit by this car. We're like, we're gonna get pull up, we're gonna yell at them. And we get next to him, and it's this little old lady, and Josh is like, "Hey, fuck you!" As the little old lady's like, "I'm so sorry." We're like, so we're like sinking into our seats, and then we like stop at a red light right next to her, and it's like that awkward like 45 seconds of having to sit there after Josh told her, "Fuck you."
Did you record on the California EP? I think that's what it's called, and the bracket split?
Not the bracket. Evan's on the bracket split. That shit is out of control. If you listen to some of those bass lines, it's like from another planet. Like it's outrageous. There's no chance that I ever stood of playing any of the shit that he played on that album. Evan didn't know the songs. They're in the studio, and it's like Josh telling him like what the change is next, you know, and Evan's just like freestyling, going crazy.
Yeah, he would do that live. Like he never learned the songs. He would just sit there and just fiddle the entire time. When you learned Gabe's parts, were they hard for Humble?
To be fair, I probably still don't know all of Gabe's parts. Like I kind of just did my own thing. Like aside from like the stuff that you can't fiddle with,
The do do do
like
do
the
do do
intro to
do.
After All.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the intro to After All, you gotta play the way that it's recorded. Anything else is pretty much kind of fair game.
So you're in Humble. Jeremy leaves. He goes in Bigwig. You guys get Conti at this point.
Yes. Yeah, so like when Jeremy quit, it was not a mistake for Jeremy to do that based on all the information that everyone had at the time and like the opportunity that was presented to him. That shit was super hard on our end to deal with because Jeremy was not replaceable. There's an argument to be made that maybe we should have just stopped playing then, but I think we were all like too stubborn to do that. But there was definitely like the seriousness of whatever we were trying to do at that time definitely never came back to the level that it was with Jeremy in the band. We played like weekend shows with Conti, but we never toured again after that. We recorded a little bit, but like everything was always just like three or four songs.
Really? You guys recorded with Conti?
Yeah.
Wasn't that was that the California EP?
We originally recorded those four songs with Jeremy and me. We did the asshole thing of like, well, we should have Jeremy taken out of those songs if we're gonna release them like officially. And so we had Conti go back and like re-record the parts and Josh like re-sang all of Jeremy's parts because having me think that like I was never going to be able to sing like I could fake it live, but like on a recording I was never going to be able to sound like Jeremy, you know. We released the Southern California EP through like this independent guy in Chicago or something. We're just playing. Like we never officially broke up. There was never an announcement. There was never a final show. And we just stopped playing.
It morphed into a forever endeavor, though.
Yes and no. We went and recorded a couple more songs with Conti like a year or so after that. There's the song The Forever Endeavor was originally a Humble song. And there was another song that was like kind of slow. And it was like the song where we called out all of our girlfriends in the end. Did you ever hear that one?
I don't think so. I think I slightly remember this.
And then we had that joke song, Taking the Long Way Home Tonight.
Yes. Taking the long way home tonight.
Yeah, we recorded those three songs.
You recorded that song?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I have no idea where it is. But in that same session, the way that recording worked at Delvecchio, I don't know if he was still in school or if he was working. I don't remember the specifics of it. He basically came in for the first day and then he wasn't going to be back. And Conti like came in and did whatever he needed to do. So this is like super sketchy and like not the right way to handle things if you're trying to be good people. But we were already practicing with Casey, me and Josh. And we had already written like two other songs with Casey. So we recorded Humble songs and Forever Endeavor songs in the same session because we knew that Del Vecchio wasn't going to come back, and we knew that if I didn't go pick up Conti, he didn't have a license, so like he wasn't going to show up. So we could like do whatever we wanted. We recorded two songs that are on first Forever Endeavor EP. We tried to do a cover of Suzanne by Weezer, but it just didn't work out. But we recorded two bands in the same session without Del Vecchio and Conti knowing. Yeah, we just stopped playing and just never booked any more practices.
Also, Rob's referencing Casey Lee Morgan, who was in Lanemeyer, and then he stayed in New Jersey, still there to this day. What's his shop again? Sparks Way?
Sparkway.
Yeah, where he sells glass pieces. So Lanemeyer broke up, and then Casey stayed in Jersey. I don't know what he did in between. I think he was like that, and then he just did Forever and Ever with Josh. I don't know if he did anything else.
It was basically when you guys broke up, the impetus to the Forever Endeavor was like when you guys broke up, if we don't do something with Casey, somebody else is gonna get him. You know, like who's like a free agent trying to snatch him up before somebody else did.
So, okay, Forever and Ever happens, and then you get basically dropped, and Drew comes in, right?
No. So Drew, we add after that recording session, we added Drew to the mix. Me, Casey, Josh, and Drew, and we would like book random studio time like anywhere we could, and we were practicing in like Josh's basement, playing ping pong with his little brothers and shit all the time. We recorded a song in New York City with John Randall. He was recording voiceover stuff at this company called Gray. So he had access to the studio. So we like took advantage of it and just like we could work overnight for free. So like John recorded another song that's on that EP. There was like this dude, Joe Padula, whose brother is the guitarist for Thursday. And he had a studio like somewhere in like Bergen County. And I think we did like either one or two songs in his basement that are on that EP. But we'd practice like 3 or 4 nights a week. And whether it was like in Josh's basement, dude, we would like literally just grab an acoustic and all four of us would go find like a random parking lot and we would like work out like the 4-part harmonies and shit. It was going pretty good. I don't remember if I decided I was moving to Pennsylvania first or if that was a product of not being in the band anymore. I don't remember like the order of how that happened. The discussion was, and this is I know in Chris's interview, he talks about like the time that he pissed Casey off and like he saw Casey lose his shit on him.
Yeah.
This is the time that I pissed Casey off and Casey lost his shit on me. We had like 5 or 6 songs, but they were recorded at 4 or 5 different studios. Probably winter of 2002, I guess. Like everybody was like, "Oh, we want to go on tour this summer," and I was like, "Okay, well that's fine. We can go on tour this summer. Not a big deal." Like we didn't have a van, we didn't have a release, we didn't have anything, and they wanted to borrow like I don't even know 20 grand or something from like Drew's parents to buy a van and trailer and self-release like an EP. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that debt. We're not signed. We don't have a label to back us. We know how self-book tours go. Like it's not going to be, this is going to take a while. I'm into that, but I don't want to, I'd rather scrape together whatever we can and like get a shit van and like, you know, if we want to release it ourselves, that's fine. Or like borrow the money to release it. That's not a huge deal. But like, I just didn't want to be involved with like the van and the trailer situation. Casey freaked out on me. I was just like, I'm sorry. Like, that's just like how I feel about this. And like, so then I was like, all right. So we had like a NIAC show coming up that weekend. And I was like, all right, we're still good for the show on Saturday or whatever. And they were like, yeah, probably like Friday or something like that. Somebody called, I don't remember who, somebody called me and they were like, yeah, we canceled the show this weekend just because it's just a weird vibe with all of us not really getting along right now. And I was like, okay, well, let me know when you want to like get together and like talk about shit or whatever. And then the show was on a Saturday. I would say like Sunday morning, somebody who was at the show instant messaged me and was like, hey man, hope you're feeling better. And I was like, I'm not sick. What are you talking about? And they were like, oh, well, Forever Endeavor played last night with Drew's brother and they said you were sick and that's why Drew's brother was playing. And I was like, okay. So then I just called and said I quit and that was it. And then I moved to Pennsylvania and didn't do a lot for a while.
You hated Drew for a while.
Well, I felt like he was the reason why me and Josh had been like so close and then we weren't currently. Like there's like a weird bit of like jealousy wrapped up in that too, if I'm like looking at it through the lens of this age and therapy and shit like that.
Yeah, that was tough because you and Josh were super close, and then I think it really hit you hard. You guys weren't friends anymore.
Yeah, 100%. Well, real quick, something that you fucked up on the podcast a million times when you always say like, I don't remember how Brian Fallon even joined the band. That was me, brother.
Yeah, I know you did bring that up. Yeah, so Rob mentions Casey wanting to kick the shit out of Chris. Chris leaves the band. We're trying to figure out what to do, and then I, like Rob said, I've through many interviews, I'm like, yeah. Then all of a sudden, Sean's like, we have this guy's gonna come and try out, which turns out to be Brian Fallon, Gaslight Anthem now. But Rob informed me, I think it was only like a month or so ago, you were like, hey, you keep fucking this up. It was me who introduced. So how did that happen? And then I want to get into the day at the fair.
We were playing in Dover with Whippersnapper. It was not the one on Main Street. That was like my first show with Lanemeyer. It was like the one that was like up like on the hill a little bit. Brian Fallon set that show up, and it was the last Surrogate Mackenzie show, and that was it. They were breaking up. So after the show, when everybody's like cleaning up and stuff, he was like super bummed out, and you guys had just like told me that you were looking for somebody to replace Chris or whatever. He was like, dude, do you know anybody who's looking for a guitarist? And I was like, I do, but I don't think it's a good idea. He's like, I don't care. Like, I will literally just be a guitarist. I don't need to write songs. I just, do they go on tour? I was like, yeah, they're a touring band. And he goes, I just want to go on tour. I don't fucking care about anything else. I'll do whatever it takes just to be in a touring band. And I was like, I still don't think it's a good idea. And he was like, just tell me. And I gave him Sean's number, and then he called Sean, and that was how that happened.
I love the way you describe it like that. I think you can hear in mostly every interview I do when a band is talking about how they get along, and I'm just so not jealous, but I'm in awe because of the same way. I'm like, wait, so not all bands just fight all the fucking time? It just blows my mind. But obviously that makes sense because that's healthy, and we were not very healthy and not very self-aware. Rob introduces us to Brian. Brian joins the band. We go on our last tour for like almost 2 months with Lawrence Arms. We get back. I'm fucking fried. And like 4 months later, I decide I'm going to quit the band. Or like by May of 2000, I'm going to quit May 2001, I'm going to quit the band. So I do that, move to California. Chris is living out there from Lanemeyer. So we live together. And then while we're there, he's still writing songs. So he's writing Day at the Fair. I think he had thought of the name, I believe, out there, but he got into acoustic stuff because Chris Carrabba was playing all this dashboard shit, and then Chris really liked that, so he starts playing acoustic stuff. So we're living together. He ends up leaving California because I forget why. I remember he got in a big fight with one of our roommates, and he's like, fuck this place, fuck this guy. So he leaves. He goes back to Jersey. And then he ends up recording some songs, which is the No Lights on Weldon EP. So like when he gets there, then tell the kind of timeline of how that and then you joining and then you guys starting Day at the Fair like together.
That was happening for like probably like 2 summers already before that. Chris had the initial songs that he recorded with Andy. I don't remember what songs were on that.
That was the demo where Sean had the voicemail at the end? Yes.
Yeah, where he left the Sean voicemail at the end of the recording.
Yes, okay.
I don't remember how many of those songs made it on No Lights on Weldon, or if any of them did. That was his like recording, and then he left for California. The next summer he came home. He just like invited whoever was around. So I was there. I don't remember who else was there. I don't remember who played drums on that. I don't remember if Frank played on those ones. It might have been fucking Badami, to be honest. I don't remember exactly. That was like the first batch of songs. The following summer after that was the song, like when you were there, you sang on
Jersey, California Live.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like the second batch of songs that summer. And when he went back, it was maybe like a couple weeks after he went back, and we were like, dude, these songs are too good. Like we gotta do something with this. I was still living in Pennsylvania. He moved in and just like slept on the couch in like me and Bob's apartment. Bob moved in with Skinny, and then Chris took Bob's room after that. That was like 2002. And when he first got there, then we got Frank Abruzzo and Mike Carroll. Frank was playing drums, and Mike Carroll was playing guitar. Who's like, to get to play with Mike Carroll is fucking insane. Dude is so good. Again, like Frank or Mike was like kind of almost like Eben. Like he didn't need to know the song. He could just fucking fake his way through it kind of thing. And our first shows were Warped Tour Canada. We knew that Steve LWL was gonna put out the full length, but we didn't have it ready to go yet. We didn't have a van, we didn't have anything. So Steve gave us his van to take to Canada. Ryan Bing came with us. It was awesome. He's our merch guy. I don't even remember how it was like 3 or 4 shows. Everybody hated us for the most part. But it was like our first shows ever. It was crazy. So it was like on the drive-through, like we started out on the drive-through stage. Then they moved us to a smaller stage. Then they moved us to like the shittiest, tiniest stage imaginable. Like every single show got worse. Or like the bracelets that they give you, like the first one said instead of like because we were ad day at the fair at the time. So the first one just said day at the fair. And then the second one said like day the fair or something. And then the last one was just like day fair. Or like every day they just like fucking cared less and less. And we were like, this fucking sucks. So I remember whenever we played Montreal, we were like we had our merch set up under the like drive-through tent. And these are like t-shirts that we like ironed on transfers, you know what I mean? Demos that we were selling for like $2 or $3 of No Lights on Weldon, but like before it was officially released. Everybody's just coming up to us and they're like, in French accents and like, you know when Finch play? And we're like, no. So then we made a sign that was like things we don't know. French. When Finch plays. Like, and Ryan Bing's like, guys, I don't know if that's like the best way to like reach people. And we're just like, because you know how Bing's like super non-confrontational and like the nice kid in the world. So we are like, he's probably right, but like we just can't not be ourselves. And then like Frank and Mike were like, they didn't bring any weed to Canada because they're worried about crossing the border with anything. And it's like the very first show, they're like, we gotta find weed, man. How are we gonna find weed? There's this guy he was dressed like Jesus, and instead of like a crown of thorns, it was like all pot leaves. And I was like, maybe you just fucking go ask that guy. So they like go, and then they got taken care of, and then the prices were apparently fantastic. The weed was apparently fantastic. When we like left the hotel on the last day, they were like, "Oh, we got to go get rid of this before we cross it." So they like gave it to some random guy that they saw and whatever. And then they didn't even check us at the border. Like they could have just brought it with them, and they were so pissed off after that. We played like that from that summer till the winter, and like with me and Chris in Pennsylvania, Frank and Mike in Bergen County. We would practice in Jersey usually. Sometimes the shows were in Pennsylvania, sometimes the shows were in Jersey, sometimes the shows were in Massachusetts. Like we were just playing all over. We played this one show in Massachusetts, and this girl Carrie either set up the show or she was just super cool, and we like became friends with her after that. And she invited us back to her house. She had all these dudes there who were like not scene dudes; they were like her friends, but they were like metal dudes. Mike Carroll, like there was like a random acoustic there, so Mike Carroll starts playing old school Metallica shit, and these kids are like, "Dude, can you play what?" And he's like, "I can play any album from Kill 'Em All to the Blackout." And like Mike Carroll had a solo Metallica acoustic show in this girl Carrie's kitchen, sitting on the fucking counters, playing every Metallica album from Kill 'Em All through Injustice. And these kids are like having circle pits and pyramids and shit, like screaming it was fucking insane.
I've never heard that story.
And it was like a cool period of time, but like nothing like crazy was really going on. Me and Chris would show up to every show with acoustics in case like Frank and Mike were like too high and forgot to come to the show.
What year was that?
That was like the end of like the fall 2002 through the winter. Living in Pennsylvania, we had every other week we played at this one like an acoustic at this one venue, like a couple blocks from our apartment, just for like free booze. And then our walk home, we'd have to like walk past the grocery store and we'd like go in Price Chopper and like we'd buy like a couple steaks. We'd go home and like the first time we like put them on like the George Foreman grill. But like we plugged 2 George Foreman grills into the same outlet and like blew out like power and like just went without lights for like 5 days till we figured out where the breaker was.
I just have to point out real fast is that this is the time they're living in Wilkes-Barre or Wilkes-Barre, whatever you say, or Wilkes-Barre, and it's you guys, and then Bob and Skinny were also living you, or they were your neighbors?
Bob had been there when Chris first moved in, but then Bob moved into a house with Skinny on like less than 10 minutes away.
Two things at this time that I remember. One, you and Chris have credit cards, which you called gift cards, and decided you'd never pay them back. Correct? Was this that time?
Yes, it was like the most carefree period of my life.
Yes. So there's that happening. You guys are all working at like Chili's or some shit.
I worked at Chili's. Chris worked at Olive Garden.
But then you also had the pain game all the time?
Yes, but that was not Chris. Chris was not involved in that. That was just me. Like I had a game going with me and and Skinny and Bob had a game going, and the pain game is just you take turns hurting each other as much as you can.
But like without the other person knowing, though, you would just attack them in
I
some
mean,
aspect.
ideally you catch him off guard, yeah. But like Bob was, he's like a ferocious like warrior. There was one day it was like I got out of the bank to go to the ATM, or maybe no, it must be Bob must have got out of the car to go to the ATM, and it was so fucking hot. Skinny opened the door and he had his leg like hanging out the car, and like when Bob came back to the car, he just like ran and like jumped and like Bruce Lee kicked the door closed on Skinny's shin.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then but we were in our apartment and Bob punched Skinny in the nuts. It got real quiet and everybody's like, "Oh fuck!" Like we might have went too far with this. And then Bob went back to his room and like smuggled his paintball gun into the living room without Skinny noticing, and like went right up and shot him point blank in the back of the head with a paintball gun. And I was hysterical. Like a paintball gun makes a pretty loud pop when it goes off. So like Skitty just like heard a pop and like felt the pain and was like laying on the floor wondering why me and Bob are like hovering over top of him hysterical because he thought Bob shot him with a real gun. And I think that they called off their game after that because that was like you can't top that.
I think I wanted to bring that up because it just sets this precedent of like how fucking carefree or fucking nuts you guys were in that time period. That's happening. You start going on tour, and at this point, you guys are what, fucking 23, 24 at this around that time?
So we never went on tour with Frank and Mike.
No, it was
And
later
then
on with Steve.
there's another lineup that exists in there. There's like I'm still in Pennsylvania. We decide we got to move on from Frank and Mike. Like they're not as reliable as we need them to be if we want to do something. Chris gets Kelly from Stillwell and Tiny Ships. He's a fucking amazing drummer. Playing with Kelly as a bass player, super fun. And Justin Sherwood on guitar. So it was like the two of them at first, and then Chris is like, I think we need a keyboard player. So they knew somebody. I don't even remember who came in to play keyboards, but whoever came in to play keyboards, once that happened, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm into this anymore. So that was not worth driving home from because Chris had moved back to New Jersey at that point, and I was still in Pennsylvania. So that was not, I wasn't driving home to be in a keyboard band.
Well, he also got what's his face, the dude who was in Red Rover,
CJ.
CJ, and then CJ's in that. What's that band now that he's in? That's really popular.
Um,
Ah, it's gonna drive me fucking crazy. I'm texting JVix right now to be like, okay, I could just put that in later. Didn't they start that and then they kicked Chris out and then started their own band?
Sort of. So they, after I left and CJ joined, Chris and CJ did not get along at all. Chris used to call him mittens. It's like the winter. He had fucking mittens because it's the winter. Chris was just like, yeah, whatever the fuck you say, mittens. You know, I'm just like was a dick to him. So then they all eventually left and were like, fuck you, Chris, and like started their own thing. And so then there was no day at the fair. I was in Pennsylvania. I started playing like acoustic shows by myself at that point, and it was like literally just fucking like Weezer covers and Jets of Brazil. Then like in probably like May or something, Chris came out to a show that I was at, and like everything that could go wrong in the show like went wrong. Like I broke a string. Like I might have broke two strings. I was just like, can somebody give this guy a guitar to come up here and save me right now? So we hadn't played in probably like a couple months, and Chris just came up and like we just played together like nothing had ever changed. So after that, he was like, dude, let's just find another drummer, move back to Jersey, and let's fucking do this. So then I transferred to the Chili's in Mount Olive, and I moved back to Jersey. It was like a very small window where this could have taken place. At one of those day shifts that I was working, Steve came in with like, I guess like UPS people that he like went to lunch with or something that he worked with. I think, I don't know if Dana, his fiance had like dumped him or I think she dumped him. So he was like super down in the dumps and he was like, dude, you know anyone looking for a drummer? And I was like, I might, but I gotta clear it first because again, like, you know, Chris gets like into a fight with somebody and then he doesn't talk to him for years, and then all of a sudden he's like he forgets what he was mad at him for in the first place. So I had to like I called Chris when I got home that day, and I was like, "Hey man, I ran into Steve. Like, and he was like, "What? Does he want to play drums?" And I was like, "It's like yeah, but I thought I needed to like ask you first because like you were pissed off and you fucking hate him." And he was like, "No, I don't hate him." And I just so then we started playing with Steve, and it was like just the three piece for I don't know. We recorded the Prelude EP within a month or two after that. Well, no, that was in the fall.
I think what happened here, first of all, the band's Dead Bars. That's CJ's band.
Dead Bars, yes.
I just text Jay. My thought was when you guys did the EP, the Prelude EP, when you had like Blame Anxiety, and I heard it. I mean, I loved the full length when it came out. I thought Jersey, California Life, and Double Edged Sword. I thought those songs were just like absolutely incredible. But then when you guys did the EP, I was just like, holy shit, like this has gone to another level. And I feel like that's when you guys really locked in. That's really where Day at the Fair, like for me, like started.
Agreed. I mean, I feel like for us, that's exactly the same. But we went on tour right when that EP came out. I don't know, we could survive as a three piece, but like it just didn't feel like the right version of everything, you know? So then we just when we decided we like and Sean Bergen was on it, he told the story too, but like he was on that tour with us as just like a merch guy. He was like, "Yeah, I play guitar." That's like the only time I ever like kind of put my foot down about it. I was like, "I'm not fucking playing bass. If somebody else joins the band, like I'm fucking playing guitar and we'll get a bass player." And Chris was like, "Okay." Sean didn't play bass, but like we just made him play bass. And that was probably not long after the other tour was in like February or March. When we went to Mardi Gras on that tour. We were out with like Flores's band,
Yeah, what was his band after Text Kept Samurais?
Clark Street.
Clark Street, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. That's like really when I like really got to know Dave
Yeah.
and Rob.
It was so great.
The hell was the name of their drummer? Can't remember it. But they had this game where they were always like punching people in the nuts. Like it wasn't crazy about that, but
Yeah, I don't like that.
anyway, they didn't go to Mardi Gras because oh Cliff. Cliff was the name of the drummer. Like they had to get home for some reason. The last show that we played with them, we were supposed to play Alabama the next day, and the show got canceled. And this is like on a Monday in February. I called my mom and I was like, "Hey, is Wednesday Ash Wednesday?" She was like, "Yeah." Why? And I was like, "I'm going to Mardi Gras tomorrow." She was just like, "Don't get arrested, please." There's only like one thing so you can't fight at Mardi Gras and you can't pass out. There's the only two things that you can't do. Like everything else is kind of like whatever. And like nothing below the waist. Like they're not really happy about that. But Sean passed out standing up against a wall. We're with him. We're not leaving him there. But these cops are like, "You got to wake him up or he's coming with us." We're like, "Sean," we're like shaking him. We're like slapping him in the face a little bit. And he's like not responding. Frisk throws a full beer in Sean's face to wake him up. And Sean opens his eyes and he's like, "What the fuck?" And we're like, "Yo, some guy threw a beer on you. He ran that way." And Sean's like, "Let's fuck him up." And the cops are like, "You're going home."
Back in the day, Sean was very notorious for passing out, and you couldn't move him. He was like dead.
Yeah, and he'd pass out with a beer in his hand. He'd have like a ninja death grip on it. Like,
Yep.
you couldn't even like pry the beer out of his hands.
So then Bergen joins for one tour, and then he was like, you guys completely shut down. At what point of that tour did you know you wanted to kick him out of the band?
I was not like anti Sean. Him and Chris were starting to develop a thing where like Sean would kind of like talk back a little bit to him. You know what I mean? He had like no fear of it. He was like, "What are you gonna fucking do about like that kind of attitude about it?" I guess. And like the two of them like had a little scrap on like some random people's front lawn in God knows what state. It was really more of like a wrestling match almost. And
Really?
like one of those like no yeah, oh yeah. And they were like, "Well, no hitting it," like making like rules about it, like no hitting in the face. It was like so lame. They were at the point where they were like that frustrated with each other that that kind of became a thing for a little bit.
So so when Sean tells in his interview that he said to you, like, hey man, have you ever kicked me out? Like, don't, let me know or something. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you were like nowhere to be found. Did you hear him say that in his interview?
Yeah, so like what that really stems from is like I told him the story of like what happened with the Forever Endeavor, and he was like, "Dude, just don't ever do that to me, man." I think the way that I viewed it at that time, it was Chris that was like the impetus of it. You know what I mean? And I didn't really know how I fit in there because it really was my place to be the one who like took point on that, even though I wasn't the one who like said, let's kick out Sean, you know? I should have been the one who like handled that. I think I probably planned on it. It just so like we were playing this venue in Pennsylvania and we used like when me and Chris were living out there, we used to play with like Todd's old band like quite a bit. We were playing and we were in like the upstairs balcony. Todd's playing with his band and Chris is just like, I want him. And I was like, okay, make it happen. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But like I'm not gonna be the one to who does that. They get done with their set me and Chris like go on stage and Chris like I think we had like already we knew we had already done like the drive-through showcase or whatever and they told us they were signing us but like we weren't signed yet. Chris like we had done like some pre-production demos with like Selick and Scars. Chris like gives Todd this demo and goes, "Hey man, you want to hear some new stuff we're working on? You should learn these songs." And like he's like so drunk and not subtle. And Todd's like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "Yo, give me your phone number. I'll call you. Let's follow up on this." And then we called Todd and we had the discussion. I don't know if we practiced with him or just like trusted like he can definitely do this, you know, like based on what we've seen already, we don't have to worry about that. I feel like that might have been the case. But Todd went ahead and like told his band, I'm quitting and I'm joining Day at the Fair. And they announced it on their website like before I had the chance to have that conversation with Sean. The shitty part, I don't think it was that I wasn't planning on having the conversation with Sean. It was just like the timing of it. That other band jumped the gun on announcing the Todd thing before I had the chance to have that conversation.
All right, so Sean's out. Drive-Thru then creates a subsidiary. They make Rushmore Records. And were you guys the first band to get signed, or was it? It was because I know it was like Socratic, Houston Calls, you guys.
Socratic was on Drive-Thru.
Oh,
It was Self Against City, Houston Calls, us. I can't remember the track record. I think we were the first band who knew we were going to be a drive-through band, but it like our contract took a long time because we like I negotiated the fuck out of that thing. Well, we went in the studio before our contract was even signed. We went in the studio for the Rocking Cheers before we were officially even under contract.
well, what did you get? What did you get the contract to say? Kind of summarize it to like what you how it would work for you guys.
I don't remember the specifics. I think it was just on like I think it was like getting more money for different things that may not have been there previously. And I think maybe initially they had wanted to like keep our publishing and I think I fought tooth and nail to for us to keep our publishing. I think that's maybe it. So we needed to get a lawyer. If you're a music lawyer, I don't know what you call it. Anything in like Hollywood, music business, any of that stuff, like you need connections to like you don't just open up Google and go, "Hey, I need a music lawyer." Just take the first guy that pops up. We asked around to a bunch of bands, and there was like two different people that were like recommended. And I had a meet, I had like a phone like interview with one of them, and I didn't like the vibe. The other one that we ended up going with was like Halifax's lawyer, and it was like this dude who at the time like it was a good flex at the time, but like now saying like we had P. Diddy's lawyer doesn't sound that good anymore.
Wait, this was P Diddy's lawyer?
Yeah, we had the way I would say it now is that we had Lady Gaga's lawyer, but she didn't exist back then yet. He grew up as like a punk dude in like the early 80s in New York City, became a lawyer, went like mostly hip hop first and like like worked with all the like P. Diddy and a bunch of other people. Biggie, like all kinds of shit. There's like super awesome posters and plaques and shit all over the office. But like his passion was like small punk rock bands. So like he would work with us and not charge us $1 million because he was just like trying to help out. That's what he was like passionate about. When I relay this information back to everybody else in the band, like Chris basically said, can you get an entertainment lawyer for us? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. That was part of my like thing that I took on. So I did that. But when I bring it back to everybody else, Steve is like, well, how much is he going to charge us? I was like, he said he works with small bands. That's his passion. He makes it so that's affordable and whatever. And he's like, well, you don't know that. Is it in writing? Bro, you don't get to fucking have a say when you like weren't involved in any of it. I already handled this. It's taken care of. So just like chill the fuck out. He just like kept escalating it and being a dick. So then like I just like took him outside the RV and just like smacked him around a little bit on his front lawn and was like, "Yeah, you can shut the fuck up," pretty much. And that was the second time. The first time was we were on when we were on tour with Bergen. We were swimming in somebody's pool in Arizona, and I don't know what I was not in the pool. Steve was in the pool. I don't know what he said to me, but when I looked at him, it was like, "Are you fucking serious?" kind of look, and he gave me this smirk that like I literally just dove in the pool and like started choking him out underwater for like 15 seconds, and then like let him go. And like I was very passionate about things in my 20s.
All right, so you guys signed a Drive-Thru, which is Rushmore, and then where did you record?
We weren't signed yet. We still weren't signed. We did the 4 songs in the summer pre-production. Then we went to Nada starting in like the beginning of November. It was election day, like John Kerry versus George Bush, and it was like that was the year of like
Rock Against Bush
Rock
and all that.
Against Bush and Punk Voter and all that stuff. I had like a duct tape on my cabinet that was like vote Kerry and all that shit, and we were all like so starry-eyed and filled with, wonderment and thinking we were going to change the world and shit. And then it all just collapsed on that day, the day that we start recording our record. John had said originally that like we could sleep in the studio, and then something changed. That was not going to be the case. So he's like taking us out of the studio of where we thought we were going to be staying the whole time. He had started working with Chris. There were two Chris's in Cooter.
Yeah, that's right. He was just like helping out with the
It's
engineering or
like
something.
business manager kind of dude. And
Yes.
that guy told John, like, you got to start charging points to these bands. You got to get a contract and you got to get points on the record. John busted out this contract of like, we need to sign this or we're not allowed to come back to the studio the next day. We were not signed yet. So we were like, well, what the fuck do we do? I wasn't there when this happened, but Chris just went ahead and signed it because we were worried about like, well, if we fuck this up, what if we don't get signed? There was like this massive animosity for like the first 2.5 to 3 weeks that we were in the studio for the Rocking Chair years. John would like offer a suggestion and we'd be like, yeah, how about you just push the fucking buttons, like, and not give us your ideas. Like we got like really far behind on schedule and like things weren't going great. Drive-Thru was pissed at John about this, like the way that it happened even. But we had to have like a big phone meeting with like Richard and Stephanie and John and all of us. We had to like, it was basically like, make this shit fucking work or like we're not gonna send any more bands to you. And to us, it was like, make this shit work or like who knows what the fuck. So we basically spent the last week and a half, like we buckled down, we got shit done, we got through it, but it was like not the experience that I think we had all had like hoped for going into it.
Did you guys, wait, hold on, you guys lived up in New York for 3 weeks?
I think 3.5 to 4 maybe.
Where, in like a hotel?
Yeah, we ended up in like the shitty hotel down the street.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The crazy part is if we knew what we knew now, we would have been like, oh, John, you want 5 points? Why don't you just take 15? You're never gonna fucking make anything. Like, there's no point. They're useless. We basically got pissed off and like had a big blow up in this big fight over what amounted to nothing in the long run anyway.
I didn't realize that entire record was recorded at Nada.
It wasn't. When we got done with that session, when we sent it to Drive-Thru, they wanted us to pick between This Is Why We Don't Have Nice Things, and there was another ballad. I can't remember the name of it.
Was it on the demos?
Yeah. They wanted us to cut either First Few Moons or This Is Why We Don't Have Nice Things because they didn't want too many ballads. Or they wanted, I don't know, they wanted a different vibe if we had another ballad or something. So we cut First Few Moons. We wanted to cut Kira because we didn't feel like it came out as good as it did on the Prelude. So we cut those songs, and then we were like, the number that we were down to, I don't remember what it was, but we were like, we want to put more songs on it than this because there were a bunch that were already like on the EP, so we didn't want anyone who was with us previously to get like shortchanged. So then they ended up sending us to Badami to do like another 3 or 4 songs, and that's when we did. What's the last song on the record? Monday Morning, Erasing Wilkes.
Ooh, that's a good one. I love Erasing Wilkes. That song fucking fires me up.
I think Coda. I think Coda wasn't there previously. We redid the Rocking Chair Years as a song. I think Dee Maselli came in and played piano instead of Chris. Then we were done, like done.
That record came out so fucking good.
think part of why we ended up eventually breaking up was the fear of how do we do this again? It was like an unspoken kind of pressure because it was like you're in a weird spot once you do something and you're like you feel like it like lands a little bit. If you change too much, you could like alienate the people that you already have. If you do the exact same thing, like how long are they going to stick around for too? Like it's a weird, you feel like you're stuck.
Also, talk about the artwork. You guys didn't really have a say. Like Drive-Thru just said, "Hey, here's the artwork," and you were like, "Okay."
So they asked us to like find somebody that we wanted to work with for the artwork. Said there's this place, Asterisk Studio, and I think they were in like Seattle or somewhere in that area, like Pacific Northwest or something. They did like Deja by Brand New. They did the Everglow, which is okay, like art wise. I don't love it. But the one before that, Destination Beautiful. And it's like a building and there's like a blue and a green sky and there's like birds and shit flying like in white space. I fucking love that artwork. And I found out that Asterisk is the company that did that. So I was like, yeah, we want to work with Asterisk. I reach out to them. They were like, is Rushmore Records affiliated with Drive-Thru? And I was like, yes. And they're like, yeah, we don't work with Drive-Thru. I tell Chris calls Stephanie, and she's like, yeah, no, we had a falling out with them. We don't work with them anymore. And I was like, fucking hell. We didn't really have a lot of choices, so they came up with somebody, and whoever that was sent us like probably like 6 or 7 samples, and they're fucking awful. Like one of them had a clown in it somewhere. I can't even tell you how bad. Like I wish I'd saved these files somewhere so that we could like laugh about it now. We go back to Richard and Stephanie, and we're like, "What the? Did you guys look at this? Like this is all terrible." And they're like, "All right, we'll have them do like a couple more." So they do another batch. They're all pretty bad for the most part. But it's like it's at the point now where if we don't pick one of these, then our release date is going to get pushed back. That's how we ended up with the Heart Bees.
Heartbeats. Which was also brought back to life on the EP, the Rockin' Horse Years, which I did the artwork for. Nice, you're welcome.
Yeah, so that's how that happened. The kicker of that story is like a couple months later, the Houston Calls record comes out, and the fucking artwork was done by Asterisk Studio. Richard and Stephanie patched everything up with them for them, but not for us.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's an iconic cover, the Houston Calls one, but it's very very memorable. The yellow or the snare with the yellow paint on it.
Yeah, no, it's not bad, Brian. It's pretty good. I'd take it over Heartbees. Do you know that it came out on the same day as From Under the Cork Tree?
Wait, that came out the same day as Fall Out Boy. Oh my God. Okay, so I mean, were they like advertising this record coming out? Or did they do any marketing for it, or they just kind of came out and they're like, well, they're part of Rushmore, so you'll just see it in the catalog or on the website.
It was on the main page of Drive-Thru for like probably 2 or 3 weeks, I would say.
But when it came out though, you guys just got it on CD, and then it was. I mean, Spotify didn't exist at this time, so it was CD, but then LimeWire and shit, you could just torrent it.
Yeah, 100%. No, like I think I don't know, I don't remember specifics. I think our first week sales were like close to 10,000.
Oh wow.
Probably, I could be wrong. It could be in like the 7 to 8,000 range. I have no idea. I don't remember. I just know it was like they were not disappointed when it happened at all. It was kind of like a little bit better than whatever they expected. There's so many things that like we fucked up as a band. Whatever sold in stores are the only records that ever got counted for us. Whatever albums you sold at a show, you would have like SoundScan sheets, and you were supposed to like fill out how many records you sold, and then like have someone from the venue like sign off on it. Dude, they Christine from Drive-Thru probably emailed us that sheet probably no less than like 50 times. We still filled out 0 SoundScan sheets ever. Like
Oh man.
we just weren't good at like that playing the game kind of stuff.
Did you guys ever like get any money from that?
We got royalties at one point that were mechanical royalties that were like significant, at least like to us anyway. I don't know. We just weren't good at playing the game type stuff. If you go back to one of your first interviews was with Josh. He's like first 10, first 15, something along there. Like I think Josh described it when you were talking to him about, well, how did you like handle things after Gabe left? and Josh said something along the lines of like, so everybody has been in a band, has been in a position where like you get to a show, the promoter promises you something up front. For whatever reason, the show doesn't work out the way that everybody hoped it would. And at the end of the night, you're stuck with, do I hold this kid's feet to the fire over like the $500 he promised me? Or do I say, listen, man, I'll take whatever you got. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And like, we were never, and Josh, same way. Like, after Gabe left, like, we were never the kind of people who were going to like hold somebody's feet to the fire over $500. You know what I mean? Like, we were the kind of people who were gonna go, if you have anything, it's cool. We know shit didn't work out, whatever. We'll try to all do a better job next time. That's kind of how me and Chris were when we were handling all this kind of stuff. People get to different places based on a lot of times what their willingness is to like do things that aren't super fun. What kind of tough conversations they're willing to have. And like, we just weren't willing to have those kind of conversations and like do things that weren't fun. The results often match like that willingness.
You had been touring, and then you keep touring, and you at this point you have the RV, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so, and then I remember you guys were notorious. I think someone told me this story one time where some band was on the road with you, and they're like, we're gonna outdrink Day at the Fair tonight, and Stephanie was like, don't ever try to outdrink Day at the Fair because you will lose. Do you ever hear this story?
Yeah.
I think you told it to me actually.
I might have.
You guys would have like handles of fucking, what was the whiskey or what did you guys
We used to
drink?
drink a lot of Jameson or Canadian Club, depending on what the budget was.
That was it.
Me and Chris mostly just drank beer. Steve would only drink maybe once every like 3 weeks or so, and he would only hard stuff. Todd, we had to revoke Todd's drinking before show privileges after it was like a show in Baltimore, and he was a fucking mess. So we were like, yeah, you can't do that again. Well, like we never like after we played, he could do whatever he wanted. But it was mostly me and Chris. But the band was the Mile After. They were also a Rushmore band. I don't know if they ever got to the point of like releasing anything. They're from somewhere in North Carolina. Bunch of good dudes, very southern, very like polite, proper. But for whatever reason, they got in their head like they never drank before they played ever. I don't even know if they would drink after they played. They would only drink when they didn't have a show the next day. We were in LA. Richard and Stephanie invited us over to the house, and Newfound Glory was there, or at least like Jordan, Chad, and who's the dude you interviewed?
Ian.
Yeah. They're like committed to this is the night that we outdrink you guys. And like that was just a silly idea for them to try in the first place. But then they ended up to the Newfound Glory, like, I fucking love you guys so much. And like they were kind of mad that like the Newfound Glory guys started singing What a Shitty Summer in the middle of this party. The Mile After guys are like, you're singing your songs, man. And we're like, yeah, like 2 bands ago. Like it's not the same thing, man.
That's fucking awesome.
Those were good dudes. I like those dudes. Like you don't always get along with everybody that you tour with necessarily. Throughout that period of time, there were like the scene was obviously had changed already. We didn't really play New Jersey that much, or we'd like tried to avoid it as much as possible because just nobody cared. Like we could go sell out to like a small club in LA and headline on our own, or we could play in New Jersey and have 15 kids show up for us.
Jersey literally stopped giving a shit about the bands unless they were on AP magazine and stuff in like 2002, 2003 on.
Yeah. So there was like a couple bands that we toured with where like dudes were like fighting over their like flat irons for their hair and
Yeah,
like
that was Amberlin.
we never toured with Amberlin, but yeah, like in that vein, yes, exactly.
Well, no, Chris told a story where you guys played a show, I think, with them, and they were doing that, and they were fighting over that, and Joe Escalante was there, and he's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, pretty much. But there were like bands that we toured with where like it was kind of the same way, and we just kind of like not really hang out with those kids 'cause they were usually kind of weird compared to like we were just trying to have fun, whatever. Lanemeyer was super competitive. Like I feel like Day at the Fair was not very competitive at all.
I think you guys are just doing your own thing, and it never seemed like you were trying to beat anyone or trying to. I don't know. It seems like you guys just wanted to tour because you wanted to tour, and it didn't seem like you guys wanted to get to this next level.
I think we would have been fine with it if I think we had a lot of strong values about how it happened would have been like whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Like anything that ever came our way, we wanted to be on merit and not on like favors and like who you know and that kind of stuff. So like there were probably like other tours that we could have gotten on and stuff if we had like asked Richard and Stephanie, like, can you get us on that tour? Like we've literally only ever asked for one favor that I can remember. When Hidden in Plainview was on tour with Less Than Jake, and it was about 2 or 3 weeks before Bamboozle. We had already gotten like a Bamboozle contract, and like it said, you can't play anywhere within however many miles of Asbury Park within however many weeks of Bamboozle. So I knew that Hidden in Plainview was going to have to drop off for the Starland date of that tour. I knew that Bamboozle wasn't going to know us or give a fuck about whatever we did. Chris called Richard and asked if we could get on the Less Than Jake show so we could, because all we want to do is play Starland.
Oh, that was the show you guys played where the place was packed.
Yeah, it was awesome. But like that's literally like the only favor that I can think of that we asked. Anything else that we ever asked for was like, hey, our transmission blew up again. Can you pay for that? Anything else that we asked for was like dollar related. It was never like favors.
What was the internal aspect or the internal relationship like with you guys on the road?
It was generally like pretty good. There was one time that like me and Chris got in a fight in LA. He left and went somewhere else. Like I think we were playing Key Club. He went somewhere else and we had to load out. And I went and got the RV. If you drive on the road that's to the right of the Key Club, you're going up into the Hollywood Hills. You know that, right? Am I wrong about this?
I don't think I ever went to the Key Club, so I'm not 100% sure. But your
All right. Well,
memory's great.
I'm driving up into the Hollywood Hills trying to figure out how to turn around. And I end up on this dead end road. There's like Mercedes and BMWs and like McLarens and like all kinds of fucking crazy expensive cars like parked on the side of the road. And I can't back up the RV with the trailer. And I'm trying not to hit like one of these really expensive cars on this like 1 lane road. I'm calling Chris and he's sending me the fucking voicemail every second. And I'm calling Steve and Todd and I'm like, you guys got to help me. And they're like, where are you? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, and all these people are like coming out of their houses because like every time you like put that thing in reverse, it's got like the loud like beeping shit, you know? People are like standing on their front lawns, like staring at me, trying to back up an RV with a trailer and not hit their like $100,000 cars. This goes on for like 45 minutes. I finally somehow managed to get back to the Key Club to load out. It's really just Steve and Todd already loaded out and they're just waiting with everything on the curb at that point. And then we have to figure out where we find Chris. Eventually we get back with Chris. He's like, I'm driving still. He's like, what? Nobody's going to fucking talk to me? And I was like, dude, let's just like not do this right now. Like, let's talk about this tomorrow and we'll figure this out. He runs up and he slaps me in the face while I'm driving.
Oh no. Oh no.
I just like slam on the brakes and like put the RV in park. I don't think I was fully stopped yet. Like that's probably where our transmission eventually blew up again anyway. And I like jump in the back seat and he's like on the couch and he's trying to kick me. Like I'm punching him, but I'm not punching him as hard as I can. He's trying to kick me, so I rip his shoe off and I'm beating him with his own shoe. Eventually I get back in the driver's seat and we leave and we end up at a Taco Bell or something and nobody wants to drive. I'm like, I'm tired. I'm fucking going to bed. I'm not driving. And we have to be in like somewhere in Arizona the next day. I was like, well, there's enough time for us to wake up and make it to the show. And we had never let Todd drive the RV up until this point because we let him drive across like the parking lot behind like Woosley's apartment in West Long Branch. And somehow he scared the shit out of us in like 100 feet. He scared the shit out of us. And we were like, you're never fucking driving. But anyway, after I beat Chris with his own shoe and nobody wants to drive, Star Wars Episode 3 opens the next day or opened that night. And Todd wants to see Star Wars Episode 3. We're like ready to go to sleep. And Todd goes, I'll drive. And I'm like, all right, go ahead. So then we just let Todd drive. And then I wake up in Arizona with Todd over my face holding like 3 tickets to Star Wars. He's like, I got tickets to the movie. Like he found a movie theater, got us tickets. And like, he's the fucking best, man.
That sounds. I never really got to know Todd, but from what I know of him, that sounds very Todd.
Dude, Todd is like a blessing of a bandmate. When you're in a band, you either like help and do stuff, or you just like show up and play. Usually, you know, those are like the 2 different categories. Todd was mostly in the show up and play category, but like he would also like handle like the load in, load out. He packed the trailer every night. but he also like didn't start shit. Like if you're gonna be the person who like mostly just shows up and plays, you shouldn't have a lot of talking shit about how everyone else is handling things. Todd was never a fucking problem with any of that. Like Todd was always just like, I don't care, whatever you guys think.
I never heard you guys talk shit. Like you never talk shit about Todd. Steve, on the other hand, was
Yeah, well,
Steve. You talk shit about. Well, Steve, we so also just kind of point out we knew Steve, all of us collectively. Well, yeah. Like freshman year, me, Chris, Steve, and Joe Antonucci had like we played together. I guess you'd say a band. We did like a battle of bands, or we did like a coffee house thing or some shit at the high school. But Steve was always just such a little bitch. Like I always got along with Steve really well, but I knew that he had that side of him where he was very selfish and he was a little brat. And so when he got into your band, I was like, interesting. And then it seemed like he had grown up. But then as the years go by and you guys are on the road, I was like, oh, okay, from hearing your stories, that just didn't happen.
we had to write songs in a way that like Steve would enjoy what he was playing. And what that amounted to was like
Double bass, double kick.
all over the place. Like, this is for dreaming, like million fucking double bass hits, you know? And we're just like, we kind of just didn't think it was worth fighting over, or like it just wasn't worth it at the time.
Well, in the Prelude, though, you guys loved that. I remember Chris was a big fan of that during the Prelude. And then after, he was just like, okay.
I think I think we lost our appreciation of it a lot quicker than you might think.
I can imagine.
I think it was that coincides with like the person, you know, and having to deal with the person. It makes you not as willing to put up with those types of things. Steve was very much about what was going to make his penis happy. Like, it's really, like, for lack of a better
Yeah.
explanation, that was Steve on tour. What was going to make him happy? He had like different girls. He had like franchises set up in different parts of the country. That Amber Lynn show that you were talking about before, there was a literal fucking hurricane that hit Florida at the end of that show. After like we ended up not like they overbooked the show and they paid us to not play. So you're like, all right, whatever. And again, that's like a stupid band decision. Yeah, we'll be the ones who just take the money and not play and like have a chance to make more fans or whatever. Like we were like okay, we'll just take the money and just drink and whatever and have fun. We don't need to play. We were the way that you have to like set up your merch orders and stuff at a certain point where you like need to get shit like shipped out to you on the road is like an annoying logistic that we were never really great at. One of our boxes got shipped to this girl's parents' house that like Steve used to hang out with. We were in, I think, Orlando, and that got shipped to Tampa, and we'd already left Tampa the day before. So Steve needed to take the RV, go back to Tampa, pick this up, and then come back and meet us in a hurricane.
Jeez. What hurricane was this?
I do not remember, but it hit like more south. It took him like 8 hours or something. In our heads, and I don't know, maybe he was telling the truth, but he said like, you know, he just went there, picked the shit up and came back. And we were like, there's no way Steve went to her house and only picked the shit up and came back. So it took all this extra time. Some band fund money went missing in the process. So like, which we weren't going to like hang him out to dry over or anything, but like, we like left there the next day, like left Orlando. We were in like Arkansas or something. And I made some kind of comment about what he was doing the previous day. And he got all pissy pants about it. And he like left the restaurant we were eating lunch at and he went back to the RV and was all like being a little bitch. So we're like, whatever, like just he's gonna do what he's gonna do. But then that night during the show, in the second, like we used to play Cura second to last. Towards the end of the song, there's like a big stop, and Steve would do like this crazy, stupid drum fill that was like overly unnecessary. That's how we knew when to come back in. And he just fucking stopped and hung us out to dry. We just like train wrecked coming back in. Chris was fucking livid. We finished the song and he goes, sorry guys, like we were gonna have another song, but we ran out of time. We'll see you next, like whatever. And then we get off stage and Chris is like, I'm fucking done with him. Like he's fucking done. Shit is never happening again. I was like, I'm fine with that. If we're doing it, we're committing to it. We're not going back. And he was like, 100%. I am committed to this. I was like, okay, let's go for a walk. Let's figure out the logistics. We'll come back and we'll talk to him. Because after the show, then he packed all his shit up and then he went to go sleep in the RV. Me, Chris, and Steve or me, Chris, and Todd walked around. We figured out like we found a bus station. We were like figuring out like how we're gonna send him home. We went ahead and we bought like a 30 pack of beer and we gave it to Conti. We said, go somewhere else. We'll call you when it's time for you to come back. This is like band business. We need to handle this ourselves.
Go drink your juice.
Yeah, go have a sippy. Let's let us handle the big boy stuff. Go in the RV and we wake him up and we talk to him and we're like, we're done, dude. Like we're not dealing with this shit anymore. And he fucking starts sobbing uncontrollably. And as soon as that happened, I looked at Chris and Chris like totally caved and he was like, well, we can work this out. That's like you. So that's how that happened.
Isn't there a story where you guys send him home on a bus?
That was we were about to send him home on the bus, and then Chris caved because Steve started crying and sobbing uncontrollably.
Oh, I thought you actually put him on the bus.
We were just telling him, we are going to the bus station, we're buying your bus ticket, and we're sending you home. And this is it. This is the end of the line for you. And then that's when he started crying, and then Chris waffled.
Did he shape up after that for the rest of the tour?
Uh, Arguable. Probably for like a couple days or a week or so, but that's also like I got mono like a couple days after that. And
What
like I
tour?
made it from that was like the Alistair and
Oh, that was the tour where their van got in an accident and Chris's guitar got smashed up.
yeah, that was like towards the very, very end.
So I remember Tim was like, I still feel bad to this day about his guitar breaking.
Dude, those guys are like I said, there's certain bands that you don't fully get along with necessarily when you're touring, and then there's bands that like are just like the best, you know? In Humble, like we didn't tour with Whippersnapper, but like we were like that with Whippersnapper. They toured with Whippersnapper before I was there, but
We toured with Whippersnapper and Lanemeyer.
yeah, and I went out to do merch for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you remember what assholes you were during that tour?
I mean, what assholes we were during every tour.
No, but I mean, I was with you guys doing merch. I went to ride with like Whippersnapper for like one ride to one show, and you guys were like, your fragile little egos were so like crushed about it. Like, and then you guys were like assholes to me for like 3 days after that.
I don't remember that. I was never mean to you, was I?
Mostly Sean, but you would get in there a little bit sometimes.
Uh, okay. I did not remember that. It's funny to me that like in Lanemeyer, you're like this, there's such a toxic band, and then you join with Chris. So that just to me says that Sean was the problem, not me.
I'm not going to point blame at any. I think everybody has their own share of blame to go around there, but
No,
like
me and Sean always battled with Chris. That was it, and then so everyone got caught in the crosshairs of that shit all the time.
whatever issues you guys had with Chris and Day at the Fair, it never existed at all. Like I think I even remember like at one of the reunion shows, like you and Sean saying like being backstage or something, and you guys being like, "How did you handle Chris through all those?" And I was like, "I never had to handle him. He was invested. He was on the team. Like he was like the leader of the team most of the time. Like there was no you had a different version of Chris than I did in some ways, but like also I think you guys kind of manifested that version of Chris in a lot of ways where like I didn't have to worry about it.
Well, Chris didn't want to be on the road, and when I talked to him, he had anxiety. He never wanted to tour. He just like really didn't want to do it, and we basically forced him to do it, and that's why it all came to a head. So I was like, "We're fucking doing this. Get in the fucking van. We're gonna go." So by the time he did Day at the Fair, that was his baby all the way through. I mean, he did the song like that was his thing. That made more sense to me that he was gonna be invested in that than he was a Lamar because that was just us being so young and not figuring things out and I wanted to go this way, Sean would go this way. Well, me and Sean were kind of aligned, and Chris just didn't want to do anything, and that's what caused all this friction. So it made sense that you guys had a way easier time and toured way more, I believe, than we did.
Yeah. Me and Chris were able to like split up the work of being in a band in a way where like I'm gonna do all the things that I'm good at, you're gonna do all the things that you're good at, and then we'll split up the things that neither of us are good at. Sean did the things he was good at and had to do everything that he wasn't good at on top of that. And that like builds a certain level of resentment because he didn't have anybody to share that shitty work with.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a taste of that like the last couple of years. It's not in like that extreme case, but when you're doing everything, you definitely get resentful.
And dude, to a degree, I mean, that was Josh with the whole like, you're not doing me a favor by being like, that's what he was trying to say without like just he just said it in a weird way, you know?
Yeah, it's in a very Josh way. So how does it finally end?
I flew home from that tour with mono. In some ways, I think I was kind of like the glue that kept the shit together, you know? And as soon as I wasn't there, like the fucking wheels started falling off. Whenever we got home from that tour, Todd decided to quit. When I got home, I also had like a really bad breakup when I got home. And so I was like not wanting to do much of anything. And I was like still feeling like shit. And then as I started to feel better, Chris was like, well, I got some shows booked. We gotta find a bass player and let's do this. And then we got Gary Bender to play bass for
Yes.
4 shows.
Yes.
And I don't want to like talk shit, but like that dude just like sucked out all the fun of being in a band, like entirely. He was there for 4 shows, but he acted like he was there since like 2003, you know? The first show was in Philly, and it was like the upstairs of the truck, and it was like packed. It was fucking great. And Chris is like, "Hey, thanks for coming out." And Gary's like, "We're day at the fair," and we're like, "What's this fucking wee shit, man? Like, like we're day at the fair. Like, you just fucking got here. What the hell?" We had a Long Island show. There was like some girls that like came to the show to see us, and like they might have been on like the bigger, less attractive side of things. And like he made a comment about that, like once they like weren't around anymore. And it was like, dude, like that's not how this shit works. Like, when you're in a band, it's a marketing thing. You are performing every day for people to judge you. As the band, you don't get to judge the people who come to see you. Like you need to be grateful for every single person that's there. Whatever we did to get to that point, you sure as fuck like don't get to like say anything bad about them in any way for wanting to support us. Like that really like didn't sit well with me at all. So after those 4 shows, I was like, I'm not fucking playing with that dude again. Chris was like, okay, I can feel it. And like, so Chris handled that. I don't remember how that happened or whatever. And then there was like a tour booked. I was kind of like, I don't know that I want to like go on tour right now. And so maybe I'll just like quit or something. And Chris was like, don't quit. Just don't go on tour. Like, don't worry about it. Just stay home. Drive through. Like, Stephanie and Richard were like, all right, if you guys are, because I think actually Steve quit too at some point in there. And we were just kind of like, well, whatever. So it was basically back to like me and Chris, which is like how it kind of started in the first place. And Richard and Stephanie were like, all right, if you guys are going to replace like Steve and Todd, you need to replace them with like really good looking younger guys. And like Chris got Kevin and Monkey to join. So we did not take that advice. We all love Monkey. We all love Kevin. You know, they were not what Richard and Stephanie were referring to. They were not younger. They did not have hair straighteners. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they went out. I don't know how long they went out for, but like basically as soon as they got back close enough that like the shows were like a drive to the show and a drive home, then I would like play the show, but otherwise I just didn't go on tour. That's kind of how that went. And then at some point after that, we were just kind of like, yeah, I don't know that we're going to do this anymore.
I remember I moved back to Jersey in March of 2004. So I moved back, do Arcade Academy. So I'm experiencing playing shows and seeing no one gives a shit. And I'm going to see you guys play and seeing that. And that's where it was like, oh man, this sucks. So I was always surprised that you guys held out as long as you did.
I think we saw the writing on the wall too. And it was like that combined with like, again, having to like go back into the studio and do something else. I don't think we were at all prepared to try to do that. And there was other stuff. There's some drive-through stuff that they weren't as supportive as they were previously because we didn't sign our merch deal with them. And it's like if you pick up any music business book, it would say do not sign a merch deal with your record label. We just did what you were supposed to do, but they were kind of like pissed off about it. So then they weren't going to support us as much as they would have if we had done that. So it was like it's kind of like a catch-22, you know, like if we had done that, maybe something could have been a little bit different, but I don't think it would have made a big difference either way, you know?
Well, that also sucked too, because like, it's like you guys got to work with Drive-Thru, but you were on Rushmore. It's kind of like back in the day, you're trying to get on Fat Records, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna put you on Honest Dons," and you're like, that's not what I'm signing up for."
I don't think that that bothered us as much as you might think because like they still put us on like all the drive-through comps and whatever they were doing that way and like the DVDs and shit.
Outward facing wise, it doesn't really help the band. I don't think. I never thought that that helped. Like being on whatever Hopeless Records subsidiary was with all the veganism and all that shit.
Maybe, but like whatever happened to us in any positive way, like happened because of them. I think they played a bigger factor than you might realize, maybe.
Well, that's good.
Like they wouldn't like Bamboozle wouldn't have asked us to play Bamboozle if we weren't on Rushmore. That didn't affect whether or not they asked us to play. Alistair wouldn't have asked us to go on tour if we weren't already semi-label mates with them, you know? Most positive things that happened because of them, and it's just like the few things that little arguments or disagreements that we had with them are what they are. And just I don't think it ultimately like changed anything, you know? Even if they were fully behind us, we weren't gonna break through and like
Well, you guys weren't the sound. You weren't the sound that was the hot sound at that time. You guys were. It's like you were just basically just kind of swimming upstream.
we missed the boat by like 2 years. If we had released the Rocking Chair Years in like 2003 instead of 2005, it might be a different story. But
Yeah, but if I think Rockin' Chair Years, I feel like that would have if that came out in like '99, 2001, that really would have. I think that album would have been bigger. I think it was I don't know. It stood out for that era.
well, yeah, I mean, if it was 2 years earlier, then we're talking it would have been in early November-ish territory of releases, which again is probably closer to what the sound was at that time, you know. And Finch and shit was like around that time. So yeah, you're probably right. It's probably like 5 years. Dude, it was the same as Lanemeyer touring and Humble touring, just on a slightly larger scale. Like we had pockets where things were awesome, and we had spots where like nobody gave a fuck at all. So it's still exactly the same, just on a slightly larger scale.
So I mean, Further North though, that came after Day at the Fair. That was basically just Day at the Fair with a different name and two different songs. Did you guys play Day at the Fair songs in Further North?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was basically like we would do a bunch of like we would still do some Day at the Fair shit until Steve would he would go into this big like melodramatic. He eventually was like, I can't play with you guys anymore. Like I just miss it so much, and like it just and we were just like, dude, it's just a fucking show. Like relax. So when he stopped playing, then we kind of like went through the period of like Further North and Monkey, and then there was one show we played at Maxwell's where like they didn't know what to call us, so they just called us Chris Barker. So we showed up, and Monkey always tells the story of like showing up and being like, I'm in Chris Barker," and we played, and then like on stage, I think I probably went like too far with like all the jokes that I made about it, and like Chris was kind of like pissed off at me for like probably like 2 weeks after that, you know. Eventually, we circled back to when we circled back to Patino and like playing with Todd again. That's literally like my favorite lineup I've ever played with anybody.
Well, that was cool because you guys would do those Thanksgiving shows, which are always fun.
Dude, playing with Patino versus Steve is like, oh my, like from a technical standpoint, you don't have the like all that crazy shit. You just have somebody who just wants to like serve the song versus like their own personal interest. But also like as a person, it's like it's not even those are not two even remotely
Oh,
similar things.
no, Dave is one of the greatest people on this fucking planet. He's one of the best drummers, and he's just down to have a good time. That was the best part. Like when you play, like you're right, if he's playing, like usually drummers are kind of, I'd say dismissive in most bands, but Dave, he's like a presence when he's playing because he really, that whole 30 minutes or hour, whatever, he fucking loves it.
Yeah.
Like he's in it for the art or just for the enjoyment of it.
I would keep playing in that band with that lineup for the rest of my life if it were possible, you know. But like Dave is obviously in his vagabond stage,
Yeah, he is.
but if he's ever around and wants to play a show, I would play with him in a heartbeat. Like
Interesting. Would you guys ever play a Day at the Fair show?
if as long as Dave's there,
Well, I mean, there's really no other drummer you'd have. That's like it's just been him since Steve.
if Monkey was interested, I would probably entertain that. I'd at least practice and see how it went. If it went well enough that I would be comfortable with it, I would totally do that in a heartbeat. I'd play with Monkey and anything else outside of that, 100%. Monkey called me up and was like, "Hey, I got an idea for something." I'd be like, "I'm there." At this point, it's kind of like I don't want to do anything that sucks from like a not fun standpoint, you know?
Well, you're doing the Humble show.
Yeah. Well, because it's those guys are always fun.
I know. I'm still on the fence if I'm gonna make it up for that show.
Well, if you do, I can't wait to see you.
I know. Like, yeah. It's just like it just all comes down to is that I have to fly into Philly and then I'd have to take an Uber to either or stay in Philly and then Uber to the show, or Uber up to the town of the show and stay in a hotel up there and then Uber back. It's just like financially, it's just kind of like a fucking lot to do that shit.
I really want to see fucking Boxcar.
I know that's the thing, man. Like I want to see all of you guys, but and then to see Boxcar play, that's just like, oh my God.
Especially after the interview that you did with everybody else except Derek. They made it seem like this would never be possible, and it was which was also fucking hysterical because like I think they said something like Derek's not really into like boxcar shit anymore. He's like kind of past that point in his life. On Facebook, his fucking name is Derek
I
Boxcar.
know. I know. It's been like that for years. I mean, it's always changed too because it went from Derek originally wanted to do it, and then B-Nuts didn't want to do it because he was going through a really bad stage in his life, and then it's flip-flopped, and Derek was like, I don't want to do it, and then it makes sense for them to do it for this show, even though it's not anywhere near fucking Bordentown. It's like 20 minutes away. Do you know if they sold out or they're close to selling out at all, or
I have no idea.
no?
I wouldn't know. No, I'm in my phase of I just show up and play kind of phase.
I definitely did want to play. We almost did, but we just couldn't make it work. I was like, yeah, it's fine. I kind of just the amount of money I'd spend to go would be stupid. I'm staring at the bass that I got for the Midtown show, and I haven't touched the thing since I got back. I really want to sell it, but I'm like, I know Sean's gonna be like, come on, we gotta play one more fucking show. All right, man. So I'll start wrapping this up. So you know that I always ask the story you'd want to tell, but I feel like you've told them all. But I mean, I'm sure there's a billion other little nuggets in there. So I don't know if you want to tell a story.
There was a humble show. This might be almost the very last show that we played. We were supposed to play in Easton, Pennsylvania. We had the van. Delvecchio had his car for some reason. I have no idea why. So he's following us in his car and he got separated and he didn't have directions to the show. And this is like kind of pre cell phones. So he just went home. He's just like, fuck it, I can't make it. So Delvecchio goes home. We show up at the show hoping Delvecchio is going to make it. Me and Josh are in the van talk, and this is like as we're talking about like, well, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna do this shit with Casey? What are we gonna do? So we're like trying to work through all that. This guy, like, we have the side door of the van open. It's the summer. It's hot as hell. This dude walks by and he like gave us a weird look or something. And then we get out of the van, close the van, we like lock it up. And this guy, he's like a little guy, and he's like he looks like really young, like 19, maybe 20. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, can I get a cigarette?" And I go, "Yeah." So I like open up my pack of cigarette. I give him a cigarette. He goes, "You got anything else in there?" No. He goes, "You don't have any weed on you?" I go, "No, I don't smoke weed." And he pulls out a badge and he goes, "Well, why'd I walk by? Why'd I smell weed when I walk by?" And he like basically threatens to arrest us. He looks like this tiny little kid. And I was like, "Oh, that's a cute little badge. Like, did you send away for that in a catalog? How'd you get that?" He tells us that he's gonna get the cops there and they're gonna search the van. And I was like, "All right, go ahead, man. Like you wanna look stupid, go nuts." Between the time that he apparently like called the cops and the actual cop showed up, he ended up being a cop. The things that me and Josh said to him, I can't believe that I've ever said to a police officer in my life. So then the real cops show up. Conti had been like inside and he like got wind that like our van's getting searched by the cops. So he like kind of comes outside and he gives me like a look and I'm like, what the fuck? That's not good. He had weed in his backpack behind the driver's seat. Well, like none of us were smoking weed, you know. He gives me the signal and they put us up against the van and they're gonna search us. I don't know what I started doing, but I started making like a ruckus to like distract everyone. And like Conti opens up the driver's side door and like grabs his backpack out of the back and like sneaks off. But like I remember the guy like took his thumb and like went around my like waistband in my like inside my boxers, and I started cracking up. And he's like, "What's so fucking funny?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. It's like hot as balls. I think that seems more like your problem right now than mine." And like they like search us. They're like, "We're gonna search the van." They fucking make us pull everything out of the van, one item at a time. So I like pull out like a guitar case and like open it up, and they're like, "The fuck is that? The fuck does it look like? Like, what is this question?" Like, they're just being such assholes over like everything, and they're like, "Everything, like, what is that?" And I'm like, "How old are you? Like, it is what it fucking looks like. Like, what are you?" So then they like threaten to like they're gonna bring in like the police dogs. And I'm like, dude, if you guys want to look fucking dumber than you already look, like go nuts. Like bring in the fucking dogs. They did not. They eventually let us go. They let us like load our shit in. We played this show with Kelly from Stillwell as our like there was Kelly from Stillwell played some like random drummers that were there just like would fill in for a couple songs that like we never played with ever before and or like never practiced with, never anything with. And we like put together a set of maybe like 6 or 7 songs. Some of them were just like, listen, you just play a straight beat and we'll just like follow you kind of stuff. Total disaster. Like aside from Kelly, Kelly was probably pretty good and probably like actually knew the songs. But I think that that was probably like the beginning of the end for Humble right there.
I love that Chris just went home.
Just went home. I was like, fuck this.
He's going home and drink some Robitussin.
Oh, you know, it's another good story. All right, so we played another time that we played Rutgers. Josh had this roommate, Noah, who he went to Hofstra with in Long Island. Noah had that like some kind of degenerative like eye disease. So like he was legally blind. He could like watch TV if he was like 6 inches away from the TV, he could like kind of see it. Basically, like Josh got his housing comped or like significantly like reduced because he was like Noah's roommate and he would have to like help him with stuff. And they became like really close friends. Noah was like a ripping guitar player because his dad like got him lessons like as soon as he found out when he's probably like 4 or 5 that he had this like this thing that was going to make him go blind. So his dad got him guitar lessons, so he would like always have something that he could like still do. Noah comes to the show with us, and Noah's because his girlfriend went to Rutgers. So we get to the show, and his girlfriend shows up, and they like hop on a bus, and they like go off somewhere. Like 2 hours later, Noah comes back, and he's got that like look in his eyes. And we're like, "Oh, cool, man. Where'd you go? Did you go back to her dorm room?" No, he went to the library. We're like, "What?" We're like, weren't there like people around? He's like, "I don't know. I couldn't fucking see him."
Wait, you went and hooked up with his girlfriend in the library?
Yeah.
That's savage.
Do you remember Opie and Anthony?
Yeah.
All
Wow.
right. So they had,
What?
sorry, Alexa, I wasn't talking to you. Opie and Anthony had like, they had blind boxing and they had cripple boxing, which is like a horrible name for something. But like blind boxing, Noah competed in and he like knocked out some other dude. And then for what they called cripple boxing, it was like dudes with one leg. And Woody from fucking Day 19, Woody from Day 19 competed in that, and he fucking destroyed some dude. You remember him? He was the drummer of Day 19.
I remember uh I remember hearing about that.
Well, that's why they like the name of their first record was like 13 Legs or something because Woody only had one leg.
Yes.
He was awesome though. He like they played our I think the release show for the bracket split. He was like, can you get me another copy of the EP?" He's like, "I crashed my car. Right? It was like it got stuck in the CD player when they totaled the car." So he was like all pissed off. But he's like standing outside of Skaters World and he's like singing Faith 98. But as he's doing it, he's kicking one of the giant poles that are outside with like his titanium leg. So he's like, "You went from boom and kicking the pole." Like, oh, he was awesome.
I just remember this as a funny story. What was it when I spit in your windshield? You were driving me home and you slapped me across the face?
Oh, that was the night you turned 21.
That was the 21. Yes, that's right. Where I was wearing sunglasses in the diner, and then you drove me home. I thought there was 2 nights. There was that, and then we went to Conti's house for New Year's Eve and drank the 2 bottles of champagne. Do you remember that one?
Was that Y2K? That might have been Y2K.
Yeah, that was like I had just broken up with Emily, and then you were hanging out with we were hanging out with those chicks were at her house where I was putting her boots on. I don't remember. This is such a random shit.
Don't fully remember that. I remember when you turned 21, we went out with it was me, you, Josh, and Sean.
Yeah.
And then I was driving you home, and out of no, you were passed out, and then you just woke up and you just spit on my windshield. So I just slapped the shit out of you.
You were like the last person on this earth I would want to get in a fight with. You were like scrappy as fuck when we were little.
Sometimes it's fun. I haven't done anything like that since probably I hit Chris with a shoe.
All right, man. For us, last question. What do you want to plug? It could be about you. It could be about a friend or a cause. It could be about all of them.
Well, I just started my own business. You know about this a little bit. I'm doing like AI consulting and creating like custom AI tools for a business so that, if you have any questions about anything, you want to write all your campaigns, you want to write any piece of content, you want to get ideas for anything, you just throw it in there and then just roll with it.
Yeah, I've been using. So Rob put me through this whole exercise a couple weeks ago. It was like almost 3 hours where he was asking me, basically building my brand guide. And I was very hesitant about ChatGPT, but since we work together, I've been using it. So he gave me this whole document, it's like 112 pages, and I uploaded it to ChatGPT on my end, but he's also going to do this whole thing on his end. And it's going to create like a CMO for me. And I've actually been using it to get ideas or to reach out to clients with things to suggest or like a LinkedIn post I did the other day. Like, but it's in my voice where it's a joke, and it's fucking awesome, dude. It's really been cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really liking it a lot.
Well, I call it Amplify. I just moved the I to, so it starts AIMPLFY.com. Hopefully, I'll have my site up by the time this podcast launches. But I soft launch so far. Everything's going okay. Still got some changes to make, but hard launch should be like next week. Humble show, Bordentown. We're playing the night before in Long Island with Iron Chic. And that's June 6th at Sand City South in Lindenhurst. 6:30 it starts. There's a band called Jack Chicks that are playing that. It's fucking great bending. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So Humble shows and Amplify.
All right, man. Last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Still just DIY, man. Like everything, like I've only ever hired one person to do a job on the house. And it was to like install a new garage door opener. And the only reason why I didn't do it myself was because I was figuring that those things should last about 15 years. And by the time I have to do another one, I'll probably have forgotten how to do it in the first place. But it's always just, why pay people to do shit when you can just do it yourself?